This is East Idaho Newsmakers with Nate Eaton.
Welcome to East Idaho Newsmakers. We're glad you're with us today, and we are so happy to have the mayor of Ammon here with us, Dana Kirkham. She has been serving for the past almost 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. And you've decided not to run again.
Correct.
Can you tell us why?
Sure. I think it's mostly a personal decision. I was on the council for 8 years, 6 years of that as the council president, 4 years as the mayor, so 12 years total. Just feels like the right time. My youngest daughter's graduating from high school. We'll be empty nesters next year. And I just feel like it's time for new ideas. I feel like I've been there. I've tried to make my contribution. I hope that I have. And I think it's time for some fresh blood. It's always good. I think it's good to turn things over. Change is a good thing.
You've had a lot of experience with city government in Ammon over the past 15 years now, almost.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you count planning and zoning.
Planning
too,
and
yeah.
zoning. How have things changed?
Well, significantly. There's the obvious changes. Obviously, we more than doubled our population in a very short period of time between 2005 and 2008. You can see the growth on the HIP road corridor. You can see all the development that's come in there. Certainly our infrastructure needs have improved considerably. We kind of got caught. We had a lot of growth very quickly, and the infrastructure lagged behind. I think we've overcome those deficiencies now. So anyway, lots has changed, and Ammon's a great place. It's a great place to live.
We'll get into some of the issues that you've addressed later on, but I want to go back to your background and what brought you to Idaho. Born and raised in Northern Virginia, traveled around the world with your parents. Mm-hmm. Talk about why you traveled and what eventually led you here.
Well, not born and raised. Raised.
Oh, okay, raised.
So born in Munich, Germany, but
okay.
So really came to America, when I was about 9. So always an American citizen. But my parents both actually worked for the Central Intelligence Agency, and so we moved around the world. We were in Germany and Venezuela, and then Belgium, and then finally landed in Virginia. And so I graduated from high school there, so I consider that home. But upon my graduation, my parents did move back to Germany. So,
wow.
So I guess I claim Virginia really because it's, I think, like my formative years, I was really there. So, but yeah, that's why we moved, because they were both public servants, and it was a great way to grow up.
So you graduated from high school in Northern Virginia, and
Mm-hmm.
where did that lead you?
Well, so that's a complicated story too.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, I went to a junior college in Marion, Alabama, Marion Military Institute, and finished there, and then came out to Utah State. At that point, my parents were in Germany, and my brother was in Utah, and so my parents said, oh, and I only have one sibling. They said, we'd feel more comfortable if you were near some family, and so I applied to all the schools in Utah and decided Utah State, in my mind, sort of reminded me of the Duke campus, but academically, obviously not quite on the same par.
A little different, yeah.
Right, but anyway, so that's how I ended up there. And then met my husband, who's an Idaho boy, and so that's all she wrote.
Okay, all right. So you're at Utah State studying
Political science.
Mm-hmm. You go on to have a career with the CIA.
Well, not really a career. I spent some time with the CIA and also the State Department. I did my internship with the State Department in Frankfurt, Germany. And then just very entry level at the Central Intelligence Agency. And I guess you could say nepotism is alive and well.
Yeah, I'm sure you had a foot in the door. What kind of things were you doing? Anything that might be fascinating?
Yeah, I was a support officer. You have to remember there's a whole army of people that support the people that are in the field. And that's what I was doing. And it's lots of logistics, making sure they have what they need when they need it. And not glamorous work, but very necessary work.
So you marry an Idaho boy,
mm-hmm.
and you moved to Ammon?
Well, we moved to Idaho Falls.
Idaho Falls.
First.
Okay, but then to Ammon. Yeah.
Yes, and we were in Idaho Falls for a time, and then went actually to Bozeman, Montana, and then we came back in 2002, and we came back to Ammon. So we've been there since 2002.
When did you start deciding maybe I should get involved with politics?
Well, I've always had an interest, obviously. My degree's in political science. I've always enjoyed political theory. But I think I'm the classic story. I moved into a neighborhood that was new. We were the second home in that neighborhood. It was kind of right in this period I talked about where Ammon was really growing rapidly and the infrastructure needs were a little bit behind. Our neighborhood was a perfect example of that. The sidewalks didn't match up. There were some water issues, some things like that. So, you know, what do? You get involved. You say, okay, someone's got to do something, and then you figure out, well, maybe I'm that someone. And so you get involved and start working on that issue, and then it leads to a broader perspective that it's not maybe just your neighborhood, but a community issue. And so you get involved with the community, and I thought, well, I'll run for city council, have maybe the best chance of making some change, executing some change there. And I really didn't expect to win. I mean, we hadn't lived here very long. I certainly didn't have much name recognition. So I thought, well, what the heck, you'll try. And if you don't win, you'll try again, right? But I did win. So anyway, there you go. And so 8 years on the council. And then I really felt like I put my blood, sweat, and tears into Ammon and helping it grow and become a city standing on its own. And so I felt like I'd love to be the ambassador, and that's really what the mayor is the ambassador for the city. So it just was a perfect segue to run for mayor and try to have an influence that way.
And you did, and you won.
Yes.
What have been some of the focuses of your administration?
Well, I think more than anything, really creating a sense of place, because Ammon really started out a rural bedroom community to the city of Idaho Falls. And that's okay. I mean, a lot of people act like that's a negative thing, but I think that's okay. That's a good thing, right? And then over the years, we've developed into our own, and it's taken some time to do that. And so I think one of my main focuses has been to really set Ammon apart and say we are standing on our own. We are not dependent on anyone else for our services. We take care of our own needs. We are a community. There is a strong sense of community. There's many people that have lived in Ammon for several generations, feel very invested in our community. And so we've really focused on branding the city and saying, you know, we're independent, we're our own thing, we bring our own qualities, our own lifestyle, and it's been a good thing.
So with doing that and becoming more independent and focusing on being your own, do you ever foresee the day where Ammon could be the size of Idaho Falls? Well,
certainly we have the room to grow that way for sure, and our area of impact would indicate that that's certainly a possibility at some point. I doubt in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a possibility, absolutely.
Business growth has been big with Sand
huge.
Creek Commons going in and that whole hit road corridor.
Mm-hmm. How has that impacted the city?
Well, it's been fantastic, and it's been very visible, and so that's really nice. But I will tell you at this point, our focus is maybe a little less on the flashy retail side of things and a little bit more on tech and industry, because we've obviously invested in our own municipal fiber, the Ammon network, which is a unique system that we're recognized nationally. We've spent a lot of time on that in large measure to woo higher paying, more sustainable jobs to Ammon. And so I think we're right on the cusp of seeing that come to fruition. We have some land that we hope to develop into an industry and technology park, and I think that's really where our focus and energy is right now.
Yeah, talk about the fiber project, because that's been pretty big and ongoing over the past several years. Where does that stand? And for the simple person watching at home who hasn't been following every detail, what exactly does this mean?
Yeah, fiber's complicated. We could do a whole segment just on fiber, but so we, in 2008, passed an ordinance and decided we would get into the municipal fiber business. And we're sometimes criticized for that because people say, well, are you competing with the private sector? The reality is the economy of scale just really wasn't there for the private sector to be terribly interested in coming and building a municipal fiber ring in the city of Ammon. So we knew we had to do it ourselves. And that's what makes our model so unique, is that it is open access. So any provider can play on our lines. We essentially build the infrastructure, the roads, that's the way we put it. It's the same as FedEx and UPS and the United States Postal Service all driving on the same road to deliver your mail. It's the same thing. We put the ring in and any provider can play. And we, of course, initially did it for our own municipal services, connecting the well houses, et cetera, had excess capacity, so sold that off to the businesses. And then last year we began moving the last mile to the home. And at the end of the summer, we'll have about 300 homes turned up on the Ammon fiber network. So it's moving right along, and it's a great thing. It's a great thing because not just for our businesses, but more and more people are working from home, and even if they're not working and their livelihood depends on what they're doing at home, everybody is streaming. I mean, how many devices are in your home? How many people are connected at any given minute to the internet somewhere? And so to be able to provide that in such an efficient, amazing way, it's just a real asset to our community.
Well, we want everyone connected to the internet at eastidahonews.com
I know you do,
on every source. So we are pleased with the fiber project, we could say. So for those 300 homes that are connected that you just talked about, what will that mean for them at the end of the summer?
Right, so we already have, about, I think, 80 homes turned up as of the last count when I talked to Bruce Patterson, who's our IT director, really an amazing, the mastermind really behind our system. What it means for them is obviously more competitive rates for internet service, faster internet service, get up to a gig and beyond really. It means that it changes the way they operate in their homes as far as all of the things that are at their disposal now. And we talk a lot about smart cities and all of the capabilities, but even in your own home, smart sprinkler heads that will turn on only when the moisture in the ground determines that it's necessary. You can have a portal that connects you directly to the school district, a portal that connects you directly to the fire station and usurps actually the internet and is a direct fiber line. So anyway, there's just, we always call it, limitless innovation, because we really don't know, everything that fiber can do. But if you're a homeowner now, you own that dedicated fiber line and all of those possibilities are at your whim. Yeah.
And eventually every resident in Ammon will be hooked up to this.
That's the hope. Yeah,
wow.
That's the hope.
How many times are you asked if Costco is coming to Ammon?
Oh, gosh. Every day almost.
Every day. Well, I just asked you again. What can you tell us? That's probably one of the number one questions we get asked. Is it going to Ammon? Is it going to Idaho Falls? Is it coming here at all?
I think if you talk to Dana Briggs in Idaho Falls, who's their economic development specialist, I think she would say the same thing I'm going to tell you, and that is that Costco's not probably coming anytime soon. That's not to say they're never coming. We had hoped that they would come. There's some complicated things with Costco. They already are in Pocatello. They didn't just lease their space there. They bought the land and they own the building, so that makes them a pretty permanent resident there. And so and they're pretty calculated. When they came and assessed whether they would come to Idaho Falls or Ammon, they were pretty calculated with their spreadsheets and going through and determining if there was enough of a population base to sustain them, et cetera. And they're a very conservative company. And so I think they think there's potential here, but we may not quite be where we need to be for them.
I imagine they would be welcome in Ammon.
Oh, heck yes.
Yeah.
But let me just say this. If it comes to eastern Idaho, if it comes to Idaho Falls or Iona or Yukon or Ammon, great. We're just happy to if it's good for the community, it's good for Ammon.
So what are some other questions you're asked a lot as mayor?
Well, I think you're probably hoping for something really sexy, but I hate to tell you this, most of what I get asked is about snow removal.
Well, that is a big issue.
And garbage pickup.
Yeah.
And parks. And
everyday
are there going
issues,
to be more?
Yeah.
That's really what the city does. It's the heartbeat of your daily life, and we are responsible for your most essential services, for water, sewer, sanitation, and that's most of what people are interested in. The actual constituents in Ammon, that's what they want to know from me is, when are you going to fix the pothole on 21st Street, and when are you going to put more playground equipment in Falcon Park, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
what are some of the biggest challenges you think the city faces?
We have the exact same. The top of our list for challenges is the same as every city in Idaho, and I suspect in the nation. And infrastructure is very expensive. A mile of road, $1 million, to even repair or build. So we, of course, have aging infrastructure like everyone else. We're always trying to mitigate that, budget accordingly. And of course, if you're in Idaho or really in most of the West at this point, water is at the top of the list. Having enough water water right to continue to grow. Obviously, we have enough now to sustain the citizens that we have in our community, but we also want to be able to grow. And that's a huge issue for us and a huge issue at the legislative level as well, because I'm sure you've heard all of this, but municipal water accounts for 3% of the water use in Idaho, but we're classified the same as agricultural use. And so when agricultural water has to be mitigated, that affects cities as well. And so when you ask a farmer to pull back 15%, it's a little bit different than asking a city who's providing water for health and welfare to pull back 15%. Mm-hmm. So we really need to see that changed. And we work with several coalitions to put pressure on the legislature to do that. But so far, we haven't seen much of a budge there. But water's probably at the top of the list. I mean, water's something I think about when I go to bed and when I wake up in the morning. How are we, especially right now as we're moving into summer and the irrigation system or season, and that people will be running their systems round the clock. It's a real issue for us.
Of course, there's the issue with growth and the school system, the Bonneville Joint School District 93. Your thoughts on sounds like they're going to be asking for a new bond either in August or November for the elementary school and or a middle school. Your thoughts?
Well, fortunately, I don't have to deal with that. There's a whole school board that has to make those very difficult decisions. It's my understanding the bond they're going to ask for won't have any tax implications. It won't raise property tax. So we've all known this was probably coming, obviously, with the growth in the elementary school level and the new high school. Even when we were having the high school discussion, there was this concern about the middle school and a need for a new one. So I'm not surprised, and everyone knows I'm an advocate for education and feel strong that whatever we need. So, but particularly if the tax implication is minimal or non-existent, of course I would support it.
Yeah. Some people say that there's kind of a rivalry between Ammon and Idaho Falls.
There isn't. There just isn't. And I would, Mayor Casper and I are friends, personal friends outside of our capacity as mayors, and I think we work very well with the city of Idaho Falls. I think there's evidence of that. You can see it at the Sunnyside intersection on Hit Road. You can see it with the new intersection behind Target, and now we're working on 17th and Hit together. I think we complement each other. I don't think there's a rivalry at all.
Looking down the road 5 or 10 years, where do you foresee Ammon?
I think you'll see it to continue to grow. In fact, we just got the new census numbers, and we're now the 15th largest city in Idaho. We were the 17th, so we're now the 15th. And we've seen about a 9% growth rate since 2010. I think you'll continue to see that kind of growth in Ammon. It's a great place to live and work and raise your children. I hope that you'll see more emphasis on technology. I hope that you'll see some companies come into the area that bring those kinds of jobs. I say I hope, but I really believe it will happen really in the imminent future. So I think you'll continue to see us as a leader in technology and innovation, particularly through the fiber network. I think that's put us on the map and will keep us on the map. I just think you'll see a lot of growth both residential and commercial.
Knowing that you've been so involved in the city politics structure for the past over a decade, is it going to be a little unusual or hard to step back?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm dreading, August through November, the election season. I'm dreading it because, in fact, maybe I'll go out of town or something.
2-month vacation.
Because I think there's no way, right? There's no way that someone can run and not point to some of the things that need improvement. And believe me, I see it. There's obviously things that you can hopefully always improve on, right? There's never a level where you say, okay, we're arrived and there's no more to worry about. So, but it's still painful because when you've invested so much time and energy and 12 years of your life into something, and to know that it's going to be picked apart a little bit, it's painful. It's like picking apart your child,
Mm-hmm, yeah. Do you plan to somewhat remain involved after you're out of office, or do you want to step back and?
Well, I hope that I hope that I'm the same community member I was before I ran for election, during my tenure, and I hope I'll be the same after. I hope that I'll always be invested in my community. I hope that I'll always be serving in some capacity. I hope that when there's a need that I'll feel like I can fill it, and if I can, that I will. So yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
What do you plan to do? You're going to be empty nesters? You're just going to travel?
We'll travel a little, I'm sure. That's the big question everyone's asking, and everyone's so disappointed with my answer because I think everyone's hoping for some big announcement, but there's no big announcement. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm obviously weighing some options, but I don't know. All I know is this, Nate. Whatever I do, I feel like I'm at the midpoint in my career. I probably have another 20 years to offer. And whatever I spend those 20 years on, I just want it to be something I feel just so passionate about. And not be motivated by money or ego, just do something that I feel really, really passionate about. And you're going to ask me what that is, and I'm not totally sure yet, but I have some ideas, let's put it that way.
Could there be a run for House of Representatives or Senate?
Well, I would never say never. I would never say never, but I don't know. I'm always kind of trying to decide if politics is really the way to make the most effective change. It's a contentious world. Politics.
And I imagine you've seen that change over the past 15 years. Even every election seems to be more vicious than the past.
Yes, it's hard on it. It's hard on a person. I think America doesn't know it, but we're driving good people out of office because we are so hard on them. And yet, at the same time, I will be the first to admit I'm often disappointed in people too. Sometimes I'm disappointed in myself, you know. I mean, we're all human, right? We're all human doing the best that we know how to do.
If you could go back 4 years and tell Dana Kirkham something about the next 4 years, what would you tell her?
I would say just enjoy it a little bit more and not be so worried about the next thing that has to be done. Enjoy the moment a little bit more. But I've always struggled with that, you know. I've always seen life as a problem to be solved instead of a journey to enjoy, right? So.
Yeah, I hear you there. Would you mind sharing one of the biggest mistakes you've made or one of the biggest lessons you've learned from as mayor?
Well, I don't know that I can point to something specific. Well, I probably could if I thought about it long enough. But I'll tell you one thing, having done this for 12 years. In the beginning, maybe I didn't always listen as well as I could have. You know, a lot of times I felt like, oh, I've thought this through, I have the answer. And somewhere in this process, I have come to understand that there are many ways to climb a mountain. And there isn't necessarily a right way or a wrong way. And so I think I'm a much better listener today than I was 12 years ago. And when I say that, a better listener, because there's one thing to hear and there's another thing to consider. And I think at this point, I consider all perspectives, all points of view, because there's value, there's virtue in all of them.
And your biggest success, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the city employees and the staff that we have at the City of Ammon. And that is independent of me, has nothing to do with me. We just have a remarkable group of people that really are a family there. And they treat the community like it was their own family, their own resources. They're very frugal with what they do. They do a lot with very little. They do it with almost no fanfare. In fact, if anything, it's more complaints. That's not really true, though. We get a lot of really great people who say thank you often to our crew that's out working every day. But they are people of integrity, and they just work just tremendously hard every day for all of us. And they really are the unsung heroes. So I'm most proud of that. I'm forever affected by those people. I'm forever changed by all of the wonderful people at the City of Ammon I've had the opportunity to rub shoulders with over the years.
So you've got about 7 months left in office. Any big plans for those 7 months?
I'm just going to survive. No.
Make it through.
No, I'm kidding. There are some things that I'm starting to understand may not get done before I leave, and that's kind of hard to to take, but I'm going to keep working, and I'll pass it over to whomever. But for sure, we are looking at comprehensive planning, and we need to redo our comprehensive plan. Of course, that's not that exciting. And then kind of my baby that I've been working on for some time is a community center. We call it a virtual library, but I don't know if that's actually the right term for it, or will be the right term for it. But we already have land donated. We have the concept. We have plans. We're looking for the funding, obviously, and this would be a great asset for our community. It would be a building that had space for the community to gather and to have seminars and teach workshops, but it also would have a room for the kids where they'd have tablets, and it would be kind of Google-esque, with the plexiglass windows where they can write with dry erase markers. We're looking at having 3D printers where they can actually develop prototypes and print them out. It has an upper level where we could display art from around the community, from local artists. So if that comes to fruition, that's a big thing. I would love to see that happen. But it's a slow process. It's obviously a lot of dollars. It's not going to come out of our city budgets. It's going to need to be privately funded, and maybe some grants. So anyway, I've always hoped to get that done before I leave. I can sort of see that probably isn't going to happen, at least the construction phase. But if I could get it all set and ready, I would feel really good about that.
Yeah. We're going to see you again over the next 7 months, and it's not like you're dying. You're still going to be around.
Thank you, Nick.
But is there any message that you want to say to the people of Ammon who you've served for the past 4 years? Anything that you want to tell them?
I don't probably have words sufficient. I just say thank you. Just thank you. Just tremendous amount of gratitude.
Very good. Well, thanks so much for coming in here.
Thank you so much for having
Dana Kirkham,
me.
the mayor of Ammon, for the past 4 years, a former member of the city council, and she, of course, will be in office, as I mentioned, until the new year. So it's not like she's going anywhere, as we mentioned.
Thank you.
You can watch previous episodes of East Idaho Newsmakers here on this page, and we'll see you next week.